Human lives are not for sale. However, each year, millions of people are exploited and abused all over the world through human trafficking. Human traffickers force victims to blend into community so that they are living amongst society undetected. Human traffickers involve exploiting people through force and deception, often for labor or commercial sex purposes. Human trafficking most commonly targets people of color, minorities, and the LGBTQ+ community. They exploit vulnerabilities such as generational trauma, discrimination, and society inequalities to target more susceptible people. Traffickers can even be family members, romantic partners, or just simply strangers. However, human trafficking can happen to anyone. Therefore, it's important to recognize and report the signs of human trafficking acts. The UN estimates that 2 million people are trafficked every year worldwide. Some signs that you can look for to identify more vulnerable individuals include housing instability, history of violence such as sexual or domestic abuse, runaway from home, being undocumented immigrants, or living in poverty. You can also identify trafficking by looking for signs such as owe money to an employer, have no control over passport or legal documents, not allowed to interact with others, threatened by boss, live in dangerous working conditions, are promised a better life, such as living conditions and education, pressured into commercial sex, transported by guards between home and controlling parent or guardian or romantic partner that doesn't allow them to speak freely with others. To learn more about signs within a true story, let's take a look at a survivor's story. Susanna explains her experience with human trafficking in the Polaris Project. She initially faced domestic violence and sought safety through commercial sex work as she believed it would provide her with financial independence and protect her from her abuser. However, she soon became the victim to traffickers who exploited her vulnerabilities of previous abuse and coerced her into a situation where she was forced to surrender all of her earnings and travel across states against her will. Throughout her 4 years of trafficking, she endured several abuse which she explained was worse than the abuse she had previously experienced. Despite this huge challenge, she maintained resilience and eventually escaped when she had a brief moment to access a phone and call National Human Trafficking Hotline, which provided her needed resources without including law enforcement, which is ultimately what led her to regain her control over her own life. So we can see that based off of Susanna's story, she fell under a vulnerable people category, having a history of sexual violence. She had a history of sexual abuse starting from a young age, to have been previously in a domestic violence relationship before the trafficking. It is important to be able to identify the signs, as Susanna did not initially recognize her situation as trafficking because of her background with sexual abuse and lack of awareness. It is also important to know the signs of being lured in for human trafficking because her trafficker first presented as a protector from her domestic violence abuser, but eventually showed control and took all of her earnings in trafficking her. It is important to identify vulnerable situations for yourself and for the people around you, such as this one, to protect yourself and others against human trafficking. Learn the signs to be able to save yourself or someone else. Take a moment to think, if you got into a human trafficking situation, would you have recognized the signs? Spot the signs, save a life. Learn more about how you can help combat human trafficking by visiting our website to learn more.